Today on Teach Me How to Vegan.
Don't they kill animals when they clear land to grow your food? If we stop eating animals, won't they take over? Don't cows need to be milked, so aren't we doing them a favor? Didn't we used to be hunter-gatherers? Didn't we evolve to eat meat? Isn't it unnatural to be vegan? Didn't God give us dominion over the animals? This is not a question I have on it. This is bonus content. Because sometimes people will say, but don't plants have feelings? Welcome to Teach Me How to Vegan,
A podcast where we explore how to switch to a vegan diet.
I'm Tony, a health educator, fitness instructor, and plant-based eating program manager for Animal Protection of New Mexico.
I'm Mickey, a stay-at-home homeschooling mom and vegan cook who likes to play in the kitchen.
Our family stopped eating meat in 2007.
And we went vegan in 2016. Now we like to share with others what we've learned.
Thanks for joining us.
Let's get started. This is part 2 of our conversation around those common questions that we get asked. When we recorded it, it got really long because there was some really great dialogue and some extra questions that came up. So enjoy part 2.
All right.
Okay.
Question number 7.
Okay.
Don't they kill animals when they clear land to grow your food? I get this a lot as a follow-up to the why.
I don't think I've gotten this one.
You haven't?
I don't think I have. So let me...
Okay. Because I've got this a lot. It's when people ask why, and then I say for the environment, for the animals, for the... Oh, you're an animal lover, but don't they kill animals when they clear land to grow your food? Or some version of your diet is actually not cruelty-free. They kill a lot of animals to grow your food.
Right. So I'm going to have to think this one out as I go. So I might answer this by saying most land clearing is not done to grow crops. Most land clearing in the world is done to grow more animals for slaughter. Mm-hmm. So it's not what I'm eating that is going towards it. And actually I had, okay. I think I have had this experience, and I had to share some Google information. When the Amazon was burning,
right,
a friend shared something about it, and somehow the clearing of the deforestation of the Amazon came up in that conversation, and it was on Facebook. And I said something like that land clearing is for animal agriculture. And then a different friend came and commented on the post and said that it's to grow soybean crops. And so I came back and I said 80% of those, I'm pretty sure 80% of the soybeans grown in the Amazon cleared land goes to cattle for human consumption. And the rest is like biofuel or filler additive. It's like not actual human consumed soy products, soybeans. And I said, let me find a link. And of course I found a link, literally the first article that was really in depth, really good from a reputable source that linked to the studies and information and all of that. And I went and shared it, and it shut down the conversation. Mm-hmm. So I would probably go some route of the majority of land being cleared for probably the last 20 years, 50 years, who knows? But the majority of the land being cleared currently is cleared for animal agriculture. It could be to literally put animals on it or to grow feed for the animals. Mm-hmm. So my diet, my food is not destroying the rainforests. Mm-hmm. It's animal agriculture.
Right.
The majority of food that I eat is already on farmed land. I would probably go that route some way.
Yeah. That was very good answer. And it's some version of that.
Okay.
But when they clear land to grow your food, you're killing animals. So you're really not vegan.
Right.
It's trying to poke holes in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, a follow-up to that when they ask you why, but they're actually not interested. They just want to be confrontational.
Yes.
And then they'll throw one of these questions at you to try and poke holes in the logic.
Yeah.
And that's when it's good to have some information exactly like what you said. That's pretty much what my answer is also.
And so a good tip there too is something like 5% of soy grown, I believe it was globally, but I'm going to say comfortably the US. Only 5% of soybeans grown in the US go towards making tofu. And it is required to be organic.
That's the thing is, because people will really point out, if your soy is not organic, then it's super unhealthy because blah, 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 blah. And it's like, but pretty much just about all of the soy that's not organic is being fed to animals.
Exactly.
Check our fridge. Every soy milk, tofu, tempeh, it's all labeled organic.
Yeah. Or what's the other
or
label?
non-GMO.
Non-GMO. It's all required to be non-GMO.
The genetically modified soy is what's being fed to the cows.
Animals. Yep.
Yeah, that's basically what my answers were. One was it takes several times more plants to feed animals that are slaughtered for meat than it does to feed the crops directly to people.
Yes.
Thus, only eating plants saves a whole lot of animals from being killed due to clearing of land for crops.
Yes, because you're clearing the rainforest and all those animals are going somewhere, but it's not for my food.
Right.
It's for animal agriculture.
Right. And this is actually the same answer that I would give. This is not a question I have on it. This is bonus content.
Well, I was going to ask, I thought of another question in this vein that somebody might come up with that I'll ask after this.
Okay, but because sometimes people will say, but don't plants have feelings? And then I would use the same exact answer. Well, it takes several times more plants to feed animals that are slaughtered for meat than it does to feed crops directly to people. Thus, only eating plants saves a whole lot of plants from suffering. Right?
Yeah.
Like even by that, even if we want to pretend that's a reality, it's still more logical to only eat plants then, right? So if you're concerned about the plants of feelings, then go vegan right now.
Yes.
So we stop harming all of those plants that you're feeding to the cows that you eventually eat the meat of, right?
Yeah.
And then I have another, follow-up or another piece of the answer to this question is that I say the point of veganism is not to cause no harm. It's about causing the least amount of harm possible.
I use that one a lot.
So when people try to poke holes in your logic, it's like, I never said I was perfect. I might kill an animal when I walk down the street if I inadvertently step on an ant that I don't know about.
Right.
Does that make me not? Are you going to take my vegan card for that?
Yeah.
Like, I never said it was about no harm or zero harm or any of that.
And animal byproducts are so ubiquitous in our production line of literally everything. Like tires use animal products.
Right.
It is a real challenge to be quote unquote 100% vegan. And so it's not about being perfect, and it's not about, doing absolutely no harm to anyone anywhere. It's about reducing as much harm as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
So my question that I had thought of during this, I don't know if you have it, so I'll ask it.
Okay.
And you can tell me if you have it, and we'll wait. But it's kind of in the vein of like clearing the land for the animals, but it's also like, well, what about the farm workers who pick all your food? You're harming them. So how would I answer that? Do you have that anywhere?
Oh, no, but I'm ready to answer
it
right off the top.
So my go-to is the farm working industry needs an overhaul. Absolutely. So voting with my dollar when I hear, Driscoll did this horrible thing, okay, I'm going to not buy Driscoll strawberries until they fix their mess or whatever. Do you know what I mean? And so there's only, again, it's not about being perfect. It's about reducing harm. And the farm working industry needs an overhaul and needs respectability. And if we work to reduce the use of pesticides and chemicals, like in that will have direct impact on farm workers' health. And so there's a whole nother conversation to have around farm worker rights and health and well-being.
Right.
And that's a whole industry to tackle. And I just make the best decisions I can with the information that I have.
Right.
And while recognizing that industry needs an overhaul and supporting efforts to overhaul the industry. Okay, what do you have?
You're absolutely right. And that's a good question. And I do get asked that a lot, or some form of that. And so my response is, you're absolutely right. And that's why going vegan isn't the most we can do. It's the least we can do.
Yes.
I don't think that veganism is the end point. I think it's the beginning point. I think if we all go vegan, then we can at least remove that layer of suffering and harm. And then from there, make the best choices we can based on the information and evolve our diets from there.
Yes.
right? Another part of that answer is that's also why personally I never say that my diet is cruelty free.
Yes, I don't either. Nope.
Because my diet might not be cruelty free, but your diet is excessively cruel.
Ooh, snaps.
Snap it.
That's good.
So,
Omnivore diets.
yeah, or not your, but
Not your. Yeah.
omnivorous. Yeah, my diet might not be cruelty free, but omnivorous diets are excessively cruel.
I like
Because
that
unless
a
we
lot.
grew the food in our backyard with our own hands and our own
Uh-huh.
sweat and tears,
Uh-huh.
we can't claim it was cruelty free because we
Exactly,
don't
yeah.
actually know
The conditions or
who was being
exactly.
treated cruel or not, or how
exploited, all
from
of that.
field to table. We don't
Mhm.
know what happened. We don't know the story, but we know that we've removed a layer of cruelty, a large, big
yeah.
layer of cruelty and harm to animals, to people, and to the planet.
Yeah.
So that's our starting point, and then we start to evolve from there.
That's great. I like that.
Thank you. I'm gonna sit up a little taller now. Yeah, but I've got asked that question a lot, and
Yeah.
I've had like I was saying at the beginning of the episode, a lot of years to reflect on it,
Yeah.
to think like, wow, that's true. And because I really set out to be intersectional and
Mhm.
mindful about all of this stuff,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
you too. That's like our nature. We're not single issue people by any means. It's all about the bigger picture
Yeah.
in everything.
Well, and I think too, when people are trying to poke holes, like, because that is a great point. What about the farm workers and how terrible they're treated? Yeah, they are. I recognize that. And that's a whole industry that needs overhauling. So
Mhm.
I've looked into what I can do in that regard, and I'm doing the best I can.
Right.
And I love that. I love the idea of like my diet is the starting point and it removes a layer of excessive cruelty in this world so that I can focus on the next layer.
Right. Because we also know about the horrors of the humans that work in meatpacking
Oh my
plants
gosh, yes.
and slaughterhouses, how they disproportionately target people who are undocumented.
Mhm.
And that's a whole nother story,
Yes.
right? So there's so
Oh,
much
that's a whole-
cruelty everywhere
Yeah.
you look. And so
There's a lot of human exploitation in animal agriculture that going vegan reduces.
we like I said, we remove that layer,
Yeah.
and then we start to make choices, informed
Yes.
choices.
And
from
so
there.
now we can say, okay, I've at least done my part as much as I can right now in animal agriculture. So now what can I do with farm worker rights
Mhm.
and
Right.
making that better?
Exactly. Good point. I'm glad you brought that up.
Thanks.
All right, we've got 3 questions left.
Okay,
Next question.
sure.
If we stop eating animals, won't they take over?
No. This one is kind of weird to me because what's the thought process?
Well, I could give you my answer because I think it
Well,
answers their thought process.
Okay.
People don't realize like what actually happens.
Uh-huh.
Like people don't process the
Okay,
full...
hold on, wait. I got it.
Okay.
Hold on. Okay. So I would probably do some version of there's a food chain and a food web, and it is completely out of balance. Humans have thrown it out of balance. Okay, so that's one. Our food chains are completely out of balance. 2, animal agriculture and our current CAFOs, concentrated animal feeding operations,
Mhm.
are not a natural thing in nature. What that means is that female cows are impregnated over and over and over and over and over and over again until they can't produce any more milk. That is not natural. They don't normally have that many babies. They're not normally pregnant and nursing for that long.
Mhm.
That's not natural. Same thing with chickens. Chickens have a natural cycle of when they lay eggs.
Mhm.
And we manipulate that in animal agriculture to keep their systems and their bodies thinking it's a certain time of year, so they'll keep laying eggs.
Mhm.
So we are overproducing. We are manipulating environments into completely unnatural cycles. So they wouldn't take over because they wouldn't naturally be at the numbers they're at now.
Mhm. Right.
So there's that. As well as some version of like, there's a balance. Like cows in nature have a natural predator. You know, birds in nature have a natural predator. They're not apex. They're not the apex predator at the top of the food chain.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Cows aren't going to start killing all these other.
Right.
Cows are actually herbivores, but.
Right. So
Anyway.
so we don't have to worry about this unnatural balance because it's artificially created by humans, and they would have natural predators.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
think that's probably where I would go.
Good points. Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
That's basically what I was saying too. Yeah, I think because the thought process is that there's how many billions of cows on
Right.
the earth. If we don't eat them, they're going to take over.
over.
But why are there that many billions of
Mhm.
cows on the earth? Because of the food chain, because of the food system.
Yeah.
So my answer is, yeah, the animals we exploit for food are intentionally bred in order to meet the demand. Less demand for animal products would mean less animals are birthed. It's that simple.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I think when people word it that way, wouldn't they take over? They think it's like some natural thing happening in nature that we have all these billions of animals that are
Yeah.
slaughtered every year.
Yeah.
And they forget it's concentrated animal feeding operations and animal agriculture that
Yeah.
is artificially creating these large
Artificially
numbers.
inseminating
Exactly.
cows so that they can give birth, and then removing the baby and milking them. Because that's another question that I saw when I was looking at some, after I created our list, I was looking at other lists to compare and contrast.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of the same questions as other lists. But one question that I saw come up a few times was, don't cows need to be milked? So aren't we doing them a favor?
Mm.
And I was just like, do new mothers need to be milked? Should we go milk them?
Mm. Mhm.
Like human mothers? No, that's
It's
the baby's job.
right.
That's literally what it's for.
And
so
it's
if we didn't,
literally supply and demand.
so if we didn't, yeah, it is.
if
Yeah,
there's a baby calf demanding milk, the mother's going to produce it.
right.
Same thing with
or
humans.
if we milk them dry continuously throughout the day, their body's going to
gonna
produce
keep-
more milk, and then they're going to quote unquote need to be milked.
Right.
But we created that situation, and we removed their baby from them because
Right.
their baby would milk them for us.
Yes.
Yeah, people think it's this natural thing where billions of cows appeared on the planet and all of them got pregnant and now all of them have too much milk. So let's do them a favor and take their milk away.
Yeah.
Take them the milk off their hands.
Yeah. I saw an interesting thing.
What utter nonsense. Sorry. I had to throw that in there.
Oh, gosh.
But okay.
Okay.
You were saying something serious. Probably.
Yeah, it was going to be kind of a serious
Something
thing.
important. Okay, I'm done.
I saw somebody share, and I didn't check the math, so sorry if it's inaccurate, but it was something along the lines of, if we went through humans the way we go through animals for
Mhm.
food, we would run out of humans in 17 days.
That's probably accurate. I think
And
you told me
I
about
was
that.
blown away.
And I thought about it, and it is probably accurate because we quote unquote only have like 7 billion humans.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure off the top of my head how many cows we have, but I know we have more cows than humans.
Yes. Well, isn't it something like 53 billion animals are slaughtered for food every year?
Yeah, but that includes chickens. And
Yes. Yeah.
pigs and-
Yeah.
But
Well, and that's why I think this quote was animals.
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 Then absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
56 billion a year animals versus a whole 8 billion people.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And that blew me away. So I feel like, something like that too really shows how many more animals there are simply for food consumption. And it's not natural.
So we have 2 more questions.
Okay.
So the next one, I have 3 different questions that I feel like
Oh boy.
all relate to each other. They're
Okay.
basically the same question people are asking.
Just
right?
different.
Just like
versions.
different ways.
Okay.
So I'm going to just tell you all 3 of them.
Okay.
Didn't we used to be hunter-gatherers? Didn't we evolve to eat meat? Isn't it unnatural to be vegan?
No, it's not unnatural to be vegan. There are a number of societies and cultures throughout human evolution that have had plant-based diets and been fine. There was a number of hunter-gatherer cultures and civilizations. One of the greatest changes to humans ever was when we figured out agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of societies stopped roaming and stopped being a level of hunters that they were, because the whole point of the hunter-gatherer societies and nomadic moving around was to follow the herds, to follow the animals. And when we figured out agriculture, there was less of that. And so there would be seasons with very little to no hunting happening because they figured out agriculture and preservation techniques as those came along. Secondly, most hunter-gatherer societies that people think of used and ate far less meat than anything we do today, particularly in America. So it might be, like with some Native American tribes, it might be, a couple of buffalo that was for the whole tribe. They would not have like steaks of buffalo like we eat now, that people eat now. Oh, I'm going to have a buffalo steak, and it's this giant slab of buffalo steak. Mm-hmm. It was used sparingly. It was used as like seasoning maybe, and the whole animal was used. Mm-hmm. Fur, fat, meat, bone, everything was used in some way. So while there is a history of hunter-gatherer civilizations and societies, once we figured out agriculture, we really stopped being nomadic and settled in and did a lot more agricultural, plant-based first foods. Like primarily the majority of what they ate was plant-based. Even the whole Paleolithic diet and the whole premise of the paleo diet being based around meat is being reevaluated because plant fibers in plant foods decompose at a far faster rate than animal products do. Mm-hmm. And so in all those digs that people quote as a paleo diet, having all this meat and animal product evidence is really in question now because of how fast plant fibers decompose. Mm-hmm. So there's like new testing happening. Mm-hmm. Long-winded, I realize, not super off the cuff and fast, but there's a lot to unpack in those questions.
There is. That was long-winded, but well articulated, and thanks. Lots of great information.
Okay, because there's just so much to unpack, and in each just one of those, there's so much to unpack. So
yeah, I love your answers. That was really good.
Thanks.
And that's something that I would have tried to condense for my answer. Because, I was swimming around with all these different thoughts of how to give a very concise answer to this really big question and idea, right? And then I found an answer on vegan.com.
Okay.
That is one sentence that I was like, that is such a mic-dropping answer.
Okay.
That I'm just going to go with that from now on.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's hear it.
So this one, it's kind of mic-dropping, or if somebody is like a really inquisitive person, then you can unpack it with all the information you just shared.
Okay.
Right? And more, get into a deep conversation. But you could just answer this by simply stating, and this is a direct quote from vegan.com, just stating this. The question isn't whether humans have in the past relied on meat to survive. The question is whether there's any clear benefit to eating meat today.
Ooh.
That's what I was like. That's the way to state it.
Yes. And so and sometimes the conversation naturally turns to my version of that is I don't need to eat meat today in this day and age in this country. I have options and I have choices that allow me to reduce harm in a way that maybe humans have never been able to reduce harm before. And I'm going to take it.
Right. And because humans have relied on a lot of things in our history.
Yes.
Way back when.
And then
that we don't need to rely on today.
Like, I mean, just horse-drawn carriages versus cars. Hello.
Right.
Like you just be simple like that, and we relied on whale blubber for candles and lighting our homes, and now we have electricity. We don't need to hunt whales almost to extinction in order to light our homes.
Right. And we could go on for days, but just like, so that was then and this is now.
Yeah.
And also, when you were talking about when people did hunt or like use, a buffalo or whatever, You know, and I'm always thinking, how does that relate to people today in 2020 walking into a grocery store and buying a pound of ground beef?
Yes.
Like,
yep.
there's no connection there whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like,
you
if
you didn't have, what did you do? Hunt the best sale? Like, there's no.
What preparation did you have to do to capture that meat in the butcher section of Whole Foods? Like, what? Oh, Mickey got jokes today. Usually I'm the one.
I hang out with you a lot.
You do. I love it. Okay.
Sorry.
So,
yeah. And then sometimes people will come. Well, I feel like sometimes if you end up talking about hunter-gatherers and you bring up the buffalo, people will say, well, what about Native Americans today and their hunting rights and this and that? Well, first of all, I'm not Native American, so I don't get to tell Native Americans what they do as far as their traditions and foods are concerned. First and foremost. Secondly, I would just, if somebody wanted to hear my thoughts, I would simply say those are the traditions that allowed them to survive hundreds of years of attempted genocide. And there's strength in that. There's history in that. That's for them to do. I would simply ask them to reduce their consumption of store-bought meat. And just separating their tradition of hunting and gathering or processing and whatever traditions and ceremonies they have around hunting, to separate that from what they buy in the store.
Right. Because that's different things we're talking about.
That's two different things.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not asking you to change your traditions. I would simply ask you to consider reducing the meat you buy in stores, meat and dairy, animal products that you buy in stores. Like, just ask you not to participate in that system. Keep your traditions. Just don't participate in this system if you can at all.
Right. That was well said. Yeah, because I'm not focusing my outreach efforts on indigenous tribes that are hunting. Like, I'm looking at CAFOs and
yes, exactly.
the food industry and the 99% of our meat that comes from a concentrated animal feeding operation.
Exactly.
That's the focus.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's again, the whole argument of like, well, what about Native Americans and vegans want to take their traditions? Sometimes it's trying to poke holes in the logic. And so that's where I come like, look, there are a number of plant-based Native Americans that can speak to that and speak to their people. I am not the one.
I like that.
Thanks.
All
right, next.
Last question. Didn't God give us dominion over the animals? Now, I put this in here because depending on where you are, you might not get this question a lot. We live in Albuquerque, and I do a lot of outreach in Albuquerque and Santa Fe. So there's a lot of Catholicism and Christianity, and, people are into reading the Bible and stuff like that. So I get that question a lot. But didn't God give us dominion over the animals?
Well, and sometimes I approach this as, what does dominion mean? And ask them for what they think dominion means. And if it's some version of to care for and be good stewards of the earth and what God has created, then I come in with, what do you know about concentrated animal feeding operations and our current animal agricultural food system? Because it is not good stewardship. It is not taking good care of the animals, and try to have that conversation. Sometimes I also say to people, I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure dominion is also used in regard to raising our children, and we're not slaughtering our kids and eating them. So obviously that's going to depend on the person.
Right.
But I really feel like it's based on the person's interpretation of dominion. And I think most people want to feel like it includes good stewardship. And so you can speak to how our animal agriculture system is not good stewardship of God's creation.
Right. Yeah.
And there's a couple of resources that you can direct people to, a couple websites that talk about how, like, if Jesus were alive today, he'd be vegan. And where in the Bible it supports being vegan. And actually, I'm pretty sure they go into the whole dominion. They pull that one out and talk about what dominion means, do an interpretation of that.
Yeah, I've got some great resources and pamphlets that you can read, booklets that are online and digital. So there's a really great kind of like short booklet called Uncovering a Vegetarian Jesus at the Beginning of Christianity by James Bean. And so it's on medium.com. The URL is quite long, but it will be linked in the show notes, or you can Google the title that I just said. Then there's an organization called the Christian Vegetarian Association.
Yes.
At christianveg.org. And they have a booklet called Joyful Compassionate Eating that you can download online for free. You can download the PDF. I think the resource you were talking about is this one, where they talk about, you know, what does the Bible say about meat? Why did God create animals? Does God care for animals? And then they go a little bit more in depth about today's world, like don't laws protect farm animals and stuff like that. So with quotes from the Bible.
Yeah. And so that's specific to Christianity. And I would imagine there's probably vegan or vegetarian people in most religions.
So in addition to these resources, I would encourage people, anybody who is, you know, religious of any denomination or wants to learn more about these answers that we're giving, to watch the documentary A Prayer for Compassion.
Yes, yeah.
Because there's some extremely well articulated thoughts and ideas in that documentary from people of all denominations, where they talk about how veganism aligns with their spirituality and their spiritual paths. And it just...
that one's really good. Yes.
Yeah, that one's really good. So I usually direct people to that when talking about this question or answering this question. So my answer...
I was going to say, what's yours?
We hang out a lot because it's pretty much the same thing you said.
Well, I mean, I should hope we hang out a lot. We live together. I think really it's we talk together a lot.
We talk a lot. And we do. We talk about all of these topics and issues in depth. And so we kind of, and we see eye to eye. Surprise, surprise. We're on the same page about a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But typically, here's my answer is, I encourage you to explore what dominion means to you. I think it means that it is our responsibility to care for the animals. I don't think God intended to give us the green light to exploit animals at our leisure.
Yes. I like the care for, the words care for, and I think you could use good stewards, because I feel like that's a phrase that is used in Christian communities. And especially not exploit animals. Yeah. That is not part of dominion.
Right. That's and it depends on who I'm talking to again, because that might not be the answer for a complete stranger, but somebody that I know, that's when I throw in. I don't think God intended to give us the green light to exploit animals at our leisure.
Yes, I like that.
That gets people thinking like,
yes, exactly. Because I think with some of these answers is you want people to be thinking about it when you leave. And I think that is a great answer, to have people thinking about it when you leave.
It's the answer that keeps on answering.
That keeps on
like
asking
the gift
them.
that keeps on giving, right?
I feel like in a lot of our answers, that is kind of our approach, is to try to leave people continuing, thinking about it even after we're gone. So we try not to be confrontational or accusative or rude or whatever, especially because, there's a whole stereotype around vegans as it is. And I think anytime we respond to questions in what might be an unexpected way, we are beating back that stereotype.
So we want to be compassionate vegans. We want to start a new stereotype, not portray the snarky vegan stereotype or the angry vegan stereotype, right? And
so we had a lot of jokes in this episode where we, maybe the joke could sound snarky depending on the way we say it. My did you hunt for that sale? Right. And some of the well, what do you eat? So it's all, tone, inflection, intent, all of that has an impact. So just be mindful of that as well.
Yeah, that was a good point.
Yeah. We had fun with this episode, and there might have been some jokes that might sound snarky to some people. So just say it in a good way.
Right. Yeah. That was well said. Thank you, Mickey.
Sure. And knowing your audience.
Right.
If you don't really know people, you want to be a little more subdued. Whereas if it's a friend, you might be able to joke and have a little bit of snark, but be serious also, you know,
Mhm.
depending on your relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. That was well said. Whenever I'm doing outreach, especially with strangers, my
Mhm.
tone of voice is always really calm.
There's a whole different decorum.
Right. Yeah. I'm answering more questions in the tone of like, that was a really good question and I appreciate you asking me. I'd like to share some information if you're interested.
Right.
As opposed to like, boy, listen.
Yeah.
You know.
Like, girl, let me tell you.
As opposed to like if I'm
really,
just
you don't know about the chickens?
yeah. Whereas if we're hanging out with friends, then I could be like, bro, what do you eat?
Yeah.
You know, it's a whole
Yes.
different thing.
Yeah.
So good point. I'm glad you added that.
Sure.
And remembering, like we said earlier, you know, people are genuinely misinformed, like
Yes.
not to their fault. You can go through the entire education system. You can try really hard. You can do all the studying and still have information missing or receive misinformation.
Yeah. Which is kind of phenomenal.
Right. Which is a whole nother
Whole
story.
nother-
That's another
whole
story
nother-
for another day.
Yeah. Whole nother conversation.
But when we remember that, we can have more compassion and patience, you
Mhm.
know, and grace with people who ask these questions that we think should be obvious.
Yeah.
All right.
All
So
right.
hopefully this was interesting and intriguing and helpful to help you craft some answers to the questions so that you can save that mental capacity, save some of that bandwidth for making other decisions
Yes.
or
Yeah.
having peace of mind, right?
Yeah.
and more stillness in your day. And hopefully we've done a little of that work for you
Yes.
to help you along this vegan journey much easier. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining us. We release new episodes every 2 weeks. You can always email us at plantbased@apnm.org or visit our website at apnm.org/plantbased for classes, recipes, and more resources.
See you in 2 weeks.